The news of Choi Jung-woo's death at 68 left a vacuum in the heart of the Korean entertainment world that can't easily be filled. It wasn't just that another veteran actor had passed, it was that one of the industry's quiet anchors, the man who stood behind so many legendary performances, had taken his final bow. The announcement came as a shock to many, even to those close to him. He had been working, laughing, and planning future projects not long before his death. And then suddenly, without warning, the curtain fell. Across South Korea, from Seoul to Busan, the air felt heavy that morning. News programs opened their broadcasts with solemn music. Social media flooded with black and white photos of him on set. His agency, Bless ENT, released a brief statement. "We are deeply saddened to announce the passing of actor Choi Jung-woo. He left us peacefully, surrounded by family. We ask for prayers and respect for the bereaved." The message was simple, but it shattered hearts everywhere. For fans, Choi wasn't just another actor. He was the embodiment of dedication. He was the man who could deliver 10 lines and make them feel like a lifetime. The man whose face could shift from compassion to rage within a single breath. And above all, the man who aged with dignity in an industry obsessed with youth. When fans watched him in Dr. Stranger, The Legend of the Blue Sea, or City Hunter, they didn't just see a performer. They saw wisdom, command, and an undercurrent of emotion that words could never fully capture. It's easy to forget how long he'd been around, almost 5 decades of acting, from the smoky backstage halls of 1970s theater to the polished drama sets of the 2020s. He was one of those actors whose careers formed the backbone of K-drama's golden age. Before the world fell in love with Korean dramas on Netflix, before the streaming era turned local shows into global hits, there were actors like Choi Jung-woo who built that foundation. He was part of the old guard who taught the new generation how to inhabit a character, not just play one. His colleagues have described him as a perfectionist, a mentor, and a friend. Actor Lee Byung-hun once shared in an interview that Choi Sunbinim never raised his voice, but when he spoke, everyone listened. He had that kind of presence, the kind that made a whole room pay attention. Actress Ha Ji-won, who worked with him in The Time We Were Not in Love, posted a heartfelt message on Instagram the night of his passing. "You always told me acting is about listening to silence between words. Thank you for teaching me that. Rest peacefully, my teacher." Behind the camera, Choi was known for his kindness. Crew members remembered him bringing warm tea to sets during winter shoots, checking if junior actors had eaten, or quietly rehearsing scenes with those struggling to find their rhythm. He had no patience for arrogance, but infinite patience for learning. Many said he carried the spirit of an educator more than a celebrity. His health, however, had been declining for a while. Reports surfaced that he had been battling depression and panic disorder for years, sometimes disappearing from the public eye between projects. Friends mentioned that he had become quieter lately, reflecting more on life, mortality, and meaning. He was tired, said one close associate. But even when he was exhausted, he'd smile and say, "I have one more scene to give." That was Choi Jung-woo, always giving, even when it cost him pieces of himself. The day of his funeral, the weather mirrored the collective grief of those who loved him. Rain drizzled softly over Gimpo, where his wake was held at Woori Hospital. Floral wreaths lined the hallways, each carrying messages of sorrow and gratitude from actors, directors, and fans. The smell of chrysanthemums filled the air. A quiet hymn played as family members bowed their heads beside his portrait. The photograph chosen for the altar was one from his later years. Gray hair brushed neatly, eyes gentle, lips curved in a modest smile. It was the look of a man who had lived fully and given endlessly. His casket was later taken to Suwon Yanawa Cemetery. As it was lowered into the earth, a hush fell over the crowd. Some cried openly. Others simply stood still, unable to process that this man, whose voice once carried through stages and screens, was now a memory. Among those present were actors who had worked alongside him for decades. Veteran actress Kim Mi-kyung whispered through tears, "We shared so many sets, and every time, he made acting feel like art. It hurts knowing there won't be another scene with him." What made Choi's death especially hard for fans was that he wasn't done. His final drama, Who Is She?, had only concluded a few months before. He had even discussed a film project slated for 2026, where he was supposed to play a retired police officer reflecting on unsolved cases, a role many now see as hauntingly prophetic. His last interviews showed him reflecting deeply on time. "The hardest thing about being an actor," he said, "is realizing that your characters live forever, but you don't." As tributes poured in, fans around the world began organizing online memorials. Hashtags like #Goodbye Choi Jung-woo and #Thank You Sunbeam trended globally. People shared clips of his performances, scenes where he offered quiet wisdom, firm leadership, or emotional collapse, and wrote about what those moments had meant to them. "He reminded me of my father," one fan wrote. "He showed me that strength doesn't always have to shout." Another wrote, "He taught me that acting is about truth, not applause." TV networks began re-airing some of his older works, while streaming services added tribute banners to the series he had graced. The Korean Film Council released a statement calling him a bridge between eras, connecting traditional stage acting with modern storytelling. Even the president's office issued condolences, acknowledging his immeasurable contribution to Korean arts and culture. But beyond accolades, the most profound tribute was silence, the kind of silence Choi himself loved to explore in his performances. In those pauses between words, in those moments when emotions spoke louder than dialogue, audiences felt his presence. Watching his old scenes now feels different. There's a tremor in the heart, a whisper of farewell woven between each line. Choi Jung-woo's life reminds us that greatness in acting isn't measured by fame or fortune, but by the ability to make people feel. He made us feel. Whether as a stoic father, a conflicted leader, or a broken man hiding his pain, he showed humanity in all its fragility. He didn't act to impress. He acted to express. Those who knew him said, he lived simply. He avoided luxury events, rarely gave interviews, and didn't chase stardom. When asked in one of his final conversations why he never sought the spotlight, he replied, "Because the light on the screen is enough. I don't need another." That humility defined him until the end. Today, fans revisit his performances with renewed appreciation. They see now what perhaps they took for granted before, that the strength of a story often rests on the shoulders of those who quietly hold it together. Choi was one of those shoulders. His loss feels like losing a pillar, a reminder that every moment shared with our idols is fleeting, and that every frame captured is a piece of eternity. In the quiet after his funeral, one journalist wrote, "He was not the hero who saved the world. He was the man who made the hero believable." That might be the best way to summarize Choi Jung-woo's legacy. His greatness didn't lie in grandeur. It lay in truth. And though his voice will never echo through a live set again, though his eyes will no longer meet the camera's gaze, the characters he created will live on. They will continue to breathe, cry, and inspire, carrying traces of the man who gave them life. Choi Jung-woo may have taken his final bow, but the curtain on his influence will never close. His name now belongs to history, yet his art belongs to eternity. In every K-drama that moves us, in every emotional monologue that makes us pause, there will always be a shadow of his brilliance lingering in the frame, a quiet whisper that says, "Remember me, not for how I died, but for how I made you feel." Because in truth, he never really left. He simply walked off the stage after giving the performance of a lifetime. 2239, October 17th, 2025, +234 903 345 7796. In the quiet aftermath of his passing, the world of Korean entertainment feels noticeably emptier, yet somehow fuller with memories. The death of Choi Jung-woo, the 68-year-old veteran who gave decades of his life to shaping the soul of K-drama, is not just the end of a man's journey, it's the closing chapter of an era. But in the silence he left behind, echoes of his art continue to whisper through every screen, every line of dialogue, and every tear shed by those who watched him. Fans are still trying to grasp the reality that this gentle force of cinema, who carried himself with the humility of a man who never sought fame, is truly gone. Tributes keep flowing, Messages from directors who once depended on his precision, actors who called him Sunbeam with pride, and fans who felt as though they grew up watching him transform from one unforgettable role to another. It's strange how someone you never met can feel like family, but that was the magic of Choi Jung-woo. He wasn't just acting, he was translating human emotion into a language that everyone could understand. When you look back at his most powerful performances, you see a reflection of yourself. In My Daughter Seo-young, he captured the quiet ache of a father's love. In City Hunter, he became the voice of authority in chaos. In The Legend of the Blue Sea, he embodied wisdom beneath mystery. His eyes carried stories of loss, redemption, and unspoken affection. He didn't just play characters. He became them, disappearing so completely into each role that you forgot where the actor ended and the story began. The news of his death felt like a cruel twist in a drama that no one wanted to end. But what truly makes it heartbreaking is that Choi still had so much more to give. His final projects hinted at a man who is rediscovering his artistic voice, exploring vulnerability and age not as limits, but as tools to tell deeper truths. He had spoken in interviews about wanting to act in a film about growing old with grace, a phrase that now carries a haunting beauty. Because that's exactly what he did. He grew old with grace, and he left this world the same way he entered it, quietly, but leaving a mark no one can erase. In his final years, those who knew him best said he became more introspective. He would often talk about legacy, not fame, not money, but meaning. He once said, "If someone remembers my role long after I'm gone, that is enough." That is immortality. Those words feel prophetic now. Because long after the funeral flowers wither and the headlines fade, we will still remember the man who gave us moments that felt like real life. And perhaps that is why Midnight in Seoul was created, to honor souls like his. Our channel has always been about more than just stories. It's about emotions, truth, and the people behind the screen who make us feel alive. We don't just talk about K-dramas. We remember the people who built them with their passion, sweat, and spirit. Choi Jung-woo was one of those people. He didn't crave the spotlight, but the spotlight always seemed to find him, because true talent doesn't need a shout to be seen. To every fan reading this, to everyone who ever watched him on their television and felt something stir inside them, this is your moment to keep his memory alive. Don't let the world forget him. Rewatch his dramas, talk about his work, tell others about the man who made Korean television what it is today. His legacy lives not in awards or ratings, but in you, in your tears, your laughter, and the moments you paused mid-scene because he made you feel something real. At Midnight in Seoul, we'll continue to honor him through the stories he left behind. We'll talk about the lessons his career taught us, the beauty of humility, the power of patience, and the grace of growing old without losing your fire. Every episode he touched will now carry a new kind of depth, a silent gratitude that the world was lucky enough to witness him. His passing reminds us of something deeper. Time moves fast, fame fades quickly, but sincerity never dies. Choi Jung-woo was proof that you don't have to be the main lead to make history. He showed us that even the smallest roles, when done with heart, can echo louder than fame ever could. So tonight, as you sit beneath the quiet Seoul sky, whether you're in Korea or thousands of miles away, think of him. Play one of his old scenes. Watch the way his eyes move, the way his words linger, the way his silence speaks louder than any line. That's where you'll find him, not in the headlines, but in those fleeting seconds where he turned fiction into truth. Choi Jung-woo's story doesn't end here. It continues in the people he inspired, the actors who learned from him, the fans who found comfort in his characters, and the dreamers who now want to follow in his footsteps. Death only took his body. His spirit lives forever on screen. And that is why, at Midnight in Seoul, we celebrate not just the glamour of Korean entertainment, but the souls who built it. We remember them, honor them, and keep their stories alive. Because the night is long, but their light never fades. To Choi Jung-woo, thank you for every word spoken, every tear shed, every breath that carried truth. You are the quiet fire that kept the world of drama alive. And though your curtain has fallen, the applause will never end. Rest well, legend. The stage of heaven just gained its greatest actor. And to our readers, if you felt his presence in the story, if you believe legends like Choi Jung-woo deserve to be remembered, then join us. Subscribe to Midnight in Seoul, where we keep the memories of Korea's most beloved stars alive. Every story we tell is a candle in the dark, lit for the ones who gave us light. Because some goodbyes are not forever. Some hearts never truly leave the stage. And Choi Jung-woo will forever stand among them, smiling in the glow of eternal applause.